Former Vice Chairman of the Conservative Party and also former PPS to Boris Johnson when he was Prime Minister. Alexander Stafford, how are you?
Hello, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you on. As his ex-former PPS, yesterday was bitten by an ostrich, and amongst the misery of tariffs, all the viewers, they were most excited about Boris being nipped by an ostrich. What was he like to work for, very briefly?
He was a great man. He was funny. He was very warm, very caring. And what you see behind the scenes, on public, is what you see behind the scenes. It's exactly the same sort of person. There's no pretense. He's not putting on in public. It's just what he is. Bit scatterbrain, but a good man.
Bit scatterbrain. That's from one of his nearest and dearest. That's great. Alexander, there is so much to talk about. The story today, this French farce. I don't know if you've seen the pictures. So you've got this flat land outside Calais. You've got two concrete posts and a barrier that's up. We are, and I'm not having a go at you, but you were part of a Tory government. You were the MP for Rother Valley. You were part of a government that started giving the French money. Ben Habib said earlier, the more that they let people in, the more money we give them to try and stop. We are giving £500 million a year to the French, and I can't use the right word I want to. They are taking the proverbial out of us, aren't they?
Oh, well, they are. We're paying the money for nothing. I mean, frankly, I'm happy for money being paid if it worked and was stopping the boats, but it's not.
Oh.
So like any sort of investment, if you're not getting the results you want, i.e. stopping the boats, why are we still paying them? And you're right, the barrier, I mean, even if the barrier was down, you just walk around the side of it.
And there's nobody controlling the barrier.
What's the point of it? It's and also, how much does that cost? That can't cost millions of pounds, does it?
But for me, it's about ideology, right? So you were Boris's PPS, you were an MP. Explain this to me, because I have sat here for 3 years and I've said the following. I'm was quite happy for us to be seen as, you know, the leader of the world, and we would care about people, we're liberals, we're moral. We're skint. We can't, in basic financial terms, even afford the interest on the money that we owe, OK? And yet still amongst the elite, and I think this is a perfectly feasible comment, there is this obsession with treating all these people and making sure everything's fine and everybody can get... Yesterday, the NHS wrote off £256 million worth of money that people had come from foreign countries for operations and disappeared. Why is there not a concerted desire amongst a convicted politician or group of them to go, we have to do this? Because the British people, I'm not talking about up in arms, but the British people, Alexander, have had enough. They want the borders closed. Say what you want about the orange man, baby, but I mean, a week after the inauguration in America, I saw great footage of these wailing women at the border. There's no point in going now. No, there isn't, because he did what he said he was going to do. Why are there no politicians in this country willing to do the same?
Yeah, I think you're right. People need to actually follow through with what they say. I think one of the big failures the Conservatives did, when I was an MP under Rishi Sunak, was making all these promises about stopping the boats and getting flights to Rwanda, and then not following through with it. You can't make these promises and not follow through with it, because the public don't believe you, but also the migrants, the gangs who are doing it will have no respect for British law and order and rule of law. I mean,
why is it that if a boat approached British waters, Ben Habib said this earlier, and there was intelligence that they had guns or weapons, that ship would be stopped, searched, weapons would be taken, the people would be arrested or they'd be deported? Why is there within the Tory party, the Labour Party, almost every single party, reforms say different, I don't know, that it wouldn't be the right thing to do? My problem is, are people, the public services, that are being stretched? Why is there not a politician who stands up and says, I'm going to close the borders and I'm going to turn the boats back? Why can't you turn the boats back? That's what I want to ask you.
Yeah, well, I think for a start, one of the big problems we have in Britain is we are a law-abiding population, but law-abiding government, and we do uphold our international treaties compared to the French, who are meant to be stopping it. We actually do what we're meant to be doing. The problem is not everyone plays the same game, and I think tough times call for tough measures. We need to send a clear message and send people back.
When you talk about law-abiding, you're talking about the ECHR?
I am talking about the ECHR.
But all right, so let's talk about you, and let's talk about Boris, and let's talk about the Tories. We were talking off air. I'm your average. I voted for the Tory party for 40 years. I couldn't last time. The ECHR, that rubbish about only Belarus and Russia, doesn't work today. Why doesn't a conviction politician stand up and say, I'm leaving the ECHR? Do you think we should leave the ECHR?
I think if it'll stop the crisis, yes, I think we should. I don't see any benefits. And all we hear is people saying, Belarus or Russia. Well, tell me the benefits of staying ECHR and not having a British equivalent, which is suited for our needs. One of the reasons I vote for Brexit and support Brexit is that we can have a bit more control over our laws and orders.
Who thought?
Let's do our own thing. Let's be
point.
confident in ourselves and say, actually, we don't need some of the international treaties and make our own British ones. We've been doing fine for the last couple of thousand years. We can go fine a couple of thousand years more.
Somebody said to me, oh, Churchill, that was 70 years ago. The bottom line is the ECHR has been hijacked by left-wing lawyers and globalists who I think put one over on the British people. And when I hear stories of, you know, fees for left-wing... Yesterday, the jihadi, the lady who left to go to Syria, joined the jihadi, ISIS, decided against it. She's got a human rights left-wing lawyer at £800 an hour, and she's going to be able to come back here to see her sick child because she needs medical treatment. Now, try explaining that to a woman in Rochdale who's 17 is waiting for a hip replacement. And I'm not sure people in Westminster really understand how angry people are in this country, because they are.
Yeah, it's crackers, and it came up time and time again on the doorstep of the general election. I think the number one reason the Tories lost the election was the failure on migration, both numbers, but also not actually doing what we said we'd do.
Were you a fan of Rwanda?
Yes, I wanted it. I spoke in favour of it. I wanted it to work, and I think it could have worked if we actually got the flights to the ground. And I don't see why we didn't get the flights to the ground.
The ECHR and left-wing lawyers.
But I still think we could have rammed it through, and I'm disappointed we didn't as a government. We let people down.
Why is it not possible to process here? Why are we not capable? I know people say you have to do it offshore so these people aren't already in this country. We remember back to Australia and it caused sort of international outrage. But then Albanese, the Labour politician, took over from the Tory government in Australia and has maintained that, and they have it under control. We need to do something, I personally think, that's tougher, because the people are crying out for it, and whichever party is in power is missing the point.
Yeah. And it gets to a point of a migration crisis to a sort of defence law or a security crisis. As you mentioned Australia, they view it as a security crisis. We should be viewing it not as a migration crisis, but as a security crisis. We don't know. Thousands of people, 400 people today in the boats coming. We don't know where these people are coming from, really. We don't know what their backgrounds are. We know the difference in wrong ones coming in. This is a national security issue, allowing tens of thousands of people coming to this country with no background check. You can't go through Heathrow and do that. So how can they do it on a small boat? It's absolutely crazy. And we should view this as a security issue and, frankly, use...
So I asked, why didn't Boris Johnson, why didn't Rishi Sunak, why didn't these politicians for 14 years say, sort of about cheap labour, this is a security risk? I mean, let me tell you something that I say almost daily. I bore even myself. Are you married?
I am.
Right. If your partner, kids, whatever, and you're being bombed, I mean, if you were trying to escape that, I'd sort of take my wife and my kids with me. And then also, Alexander, the first country I got to where I wasn't being shelled, I go, phew, the reason people come to this country is not because they've got relatives, or we're as soft as, aren't we? We are treating, I think, migrants better than we're treating some people in this country who have paid their stamp. And people hate me saying that. They go, oh, you can't be... Yes, I can.
I think you're sadly right. I mean, look at the numbers generally of the Ukrainians who came over the last couple of years. Majority of them were women and children. The men stayed back to fight to defend.
Which proved that we did it right. They were being shelled. We opened our homes and we opened our hearts.
And the men stayed to fight, the women and children, we got out. And that was the right thing to do.
But we're talking about men who dropped their passports and papers in the sea 12 miles out. We're talking about men who have no connection with this country. I remember Sunak, when he did that deal with the Albanian Prime Minister, who was 8'7" and Sunak was 3'2". It was ludicrous. But I remember at the time thinking, so you've done a deal with Albanians, right? Because actually, at that point, the Albanian prisoners were the biggest selection in British foreign criminals in British jail. Why have we not made deals with other countries? Why? I don't...
And this is what I think, like, Rishi did start getting the deals going, which was good, but have we had a single deal since Keir Starmer took over? Are they really trying to
listen, I'm not going to compliment this lot, but I just want to talk to you a little bit about the past. What did you make of Sunak as a Prime Minister?
I thought he was a very clever man. I thought he was a very intelligent man. I don't think he had the best political nous, as we've seen by the general election. I thought he was a good man, an honest man, but fundamentally he couldn't turn the party around, couldn't turn the country around.
Liz Truss? I'm just interested, because there are many people now saying that if we'd held firm with somebody like that, like they're doing in America with the Orange Man baby, that actually economically she wasn't as mad as people are making out. What was your view of her?
I believe that, I think Oh, that's always a tough question because it only promised her for 6 weeks, and ultimately I voted for her.
Did you?
I did. I supported Penny Mordaunt initially, and then I voted for her, partly because I felt at the time she could turn the country around, and clearly not. What happened with the markets and the budget turned to be an absolute failure. And
interesting, isn't it, that the establishment did what it did to Liz Truss, and I'm not supporting her. And the disastrous budget we had in October, the Margats didn't... did you hear that today from old Rachel Thieves, as I call her? Richard III, have a look. She said, "Don't worry, we've got this," or something. "We've got your back with everything that's happening." I mean, they don't fill me with inspiration. I'm just interested from your point of view. Do you, as an ex-Tory MP, when you look at what's happening, whether it's migration or the economy, do you think, God, we got it wrong, that our mistakes have allowed this to be in?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest mistakes was during COVID, frankly, was taking the eye off the ball of everything else. I think Tories did a good job when it came to things like the vaccine, when it came to the business support during COVID, but we took our eyes off things like migration, like certain parts of the economy, the welfare state. We did do that, and we should have actually been able to do more than just dealt with the crisis of COVID and move forward. And also, we should be a bit more honest with the public about the cost of paying for COVID. And I think we've sort of promised the country, oh, we're going to have all these massive amounts of support, these £300 billion of support, and not actually have to pay it back.
Well, now I'm not going to disagree with you, but I didn't, maybe I'm a bit old in the tooth. There wasn't, I remember my son-in-law said, "Oh, they're giving me 12 grand. Yeah. And you think, do you not know that you're going to have to pay that back then? I'm just being totally honest. I think, look, there were obvious mistakes, and I think COVID was in itself a wide-ranging nightmare for so many countries. Very quickly, and I was always a big supporter of your former boss, Boris Johnson. The one thing that I disagree with him, and increasingly disagree with net zero. I think that is political suicide, the net zero argument now. I would say that and migration are the first two most important things. Where do you stand on this madness? We've got to be net zero by 2050, which is going to further bankrupt a country. I mean, why don't we just drill? We've got oil and gas everywhere. Why don't we do that? Why don't we compensate the people that don't want us to frack by taking money off their bills? We've got this money under the ground that will make us money. Why don't we do that? Why don't we do what Trump's doing?
Well, what we should be doing is looking at all the technology and seeing how we can benefit. Like, one of the big things I did in Parliament was on hydrogen. And actually, we can sell that technology abroad. Hydrogen in cars, you can do hydrogen in planes, things you can't put electric battery in because we can't electrify planes, for instance, or ships. We should be making that technology and then selling it abroad. And I think one of the big failures of the Conservative government was not actually explaining some of the potential or reindustrialising some of the areas to sell this stuff. Because frankly, if we are making the wind turbines and to sell them abroad, or hydrogen technology, we can make money out of it. We've sort of the worst of both worlds. We're neither doing one thing or the other. We're just basically saying we want net zero, but none of the benefits or potential industrial things we could do with it.
But again, it's listening to the British people. I mean, I'll bring you on to Kemi Badenoch. I would suspect, unless I'm massively wrong, I hear I hear that Ed Miliband saying the majority of British people want net zero. No, they don't. They don't. Most people in the United Kingdom, and if I'm wrong, tell me, but I would respectfully suggest, want the migration situation sorted. They want the government's priorities in terms of justice and crime and net zero to concentrate on the things that matter. Let's talk about Badenoch. 9 months, and I'm still told by the Tory PR machine that she is looking at what lost to the election and working out what's next. In the meantime, the rhetoric from Reform, not the Liberal Democrats, because it's just don't even get me on that. To me, she's losing out. I'm not blown away at all by her.
Well, she did come up a couple of weeks ago with her net zero policy, sort of getting rid of the targets.
It's been 9 months, Alexander.
Since election, yeah, and she's been working on that. And I think just the first steps, they started some stuff, migration. But I think this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. The next general election is 4 years away. And I do think if we don't actually analyse the problems and come up with concrete policies that people actually believe, it's easy to say we'll get rid of net zero or we'll stop the boats. Keir Starmer did that. And the public said, well, you didn't. The public need to show our work. It's like at school, if you do a maths project at school, you can't just write the answer and the teacher believe you. You have to write the answer, but also the working of how to get there.
That's why I always failed maths.
And that's why we need to show what we're doing as Tories, to actually show the public.
I know, but would you agree with me that whilst you are apparently spending 9 months working out why, I can tell you what you got wrong. The British public stopped listening to you for the very reason that you said 3 minutes into this, when you said we didn't deliver on what we promised to deliver. maybe I'm wrong. I know she was with Mike the other day on breakfast. I do not see her ever being the Prime Minister of this country, and I suspect that Kemi Badenoch will be gone in a year's time.
Well, we'll have to see, but I don't think that's the case.
Do you not?
No, I don't think that's the case at all. I think she's analysing the problems properly, looking at it, and actually having that proper, in-depth review. I think after the last general election, after Labour made a mistake by promising the world with no substance.
But how bad was that? So what does that say about the Tories? That they promised the world and people didn't even... We were sat here going, I remember 1979. I remember what happened when every union got a 30% increase. This is going to be carnage, financially, domestically, but so hacked off for the British people with your party. Yeah. They voted. Well, they didn't. 34% voted. Well, you think she's the next lead? You think she could be Prime Minister, do you?
I think she could be the next Prime Minister. I think she could.
You're going to come back here lots. That's never going to happen. James Cleverly will take over from her within a year.
You think?
Yeah. Any person leading the Tory party, and you go all the way back to Maastricht and John Major, what did he call them? What did he call them? Yeah, the bastards. No, but he did. The Tory party is split. And you know, perhaps the most impressive performer in the last 6 months has been Robert Jenrick, right? Yeah. He sounded at times more Farage than Farage, and I suspect that I was very surprised that the members didn't vote for him. But Robert Jenrick would polarise the Tory party, and the Tory party wants the central vote, they want the right vote, and they've ended up not being either.
Well, that is the big problem. With Reform doing, as well as the other polls, the centre-right vote, right-wing vote, is being massively split now, and we could have a situation where the Reform do very well next time, Tories do very well next time, but Labour still win the government because the right-wing vote split.
Do you think there would ever be a deal between the two?
Depending on what thing goes, I wouldn't rule it going out, especially on local levels. Some areas which Tories are never going to win or Reform are never going to win. We just make sure the right candidates are selected, though, on all sides, and we try and bring the right-wing vote back together.
Do you think Reform could win a majority next time?
I don't see how they could, to be honest. Looking at the current situation, we'll look at the stuff with Rupert Lowe and stuff. They still got those structural issues, for want of better words.
But they're beating you in the polls, which should presumably mean that you don't think the Tories could win a majority next time.
No, I think the structures of the Tory party are theirs. We talk about council levels, things like that. Now, don't get me wrong, Reform could do well at the local elections, probably will do well at local elections, and build up that sort of base. And there's one thing having a sort of flash in the pan polls, but another thing that's sort of long-term marathon. And at the moment, I don't think they can. But I do think Reform could do that if Tories don't get their act into gear properly.
If they don't get their act into gear, can you ever see yourself as a member of Reform?
I can't see that, to be honest.
Do you want to stand again as a Tory?
I want to stand again, yes.
You do?
I want to stand again.
Which is why you won't criticise Kemi Badenoch. Oh. No, listen, I understand how it works.
I worked there for 2 years, our PPS. I know that she's hard-working. I know what she can bring.
Does she have the temper they say she does?
She's got very laser focus. I've never seen
that. Such a politician's answer. Does she lose her rag? She's laser focused. She never bollocked me. Honestly, never in a million years did she ever tell me.
I've never seen her bollock anyone, frankly. But,
let me ask you about a couple of things in the news, just from your personal point of view. Digital ID. Ben Habib said something earlier which I thought was easily the best thing of the day, which was that we've always made ourselves out to be this sort of liberal nation who helps everybody, but that is an illiberal, draconian measure taken because of the problems we've got because we haven't got controlled migration.
Well, first of all, it's a cracker's idea, and it's nothing to do with migration. Digital ID will not stop the boats, it will not solve the migration situation any more than national insurance or passport number. It's just, frankly, groups of the Labour Party want more and more central control, and we've never had ID cards apart from in wartime, and it's an absolutely crazy idea, and it's pointless. And I just don't see why we're trying to put more powers to the state. And we'll get to a point where, like China's doing with facial recognition and things like that, we don't want any of that sort of stuff. That is not what we do in this country.
The big argument amongst many people over the last few days, you'll know Lucy Connolly is the lady that, let's just say it again, I always say it, wrote some deplorable things after the Southport murders. Turns out that she lost a child. Turns out that she was as angry and off her head with anger that you can be. What that vile creature did to those 3 children I won't even broadcast it, it was so vile. Is it fair in the United Kingdom in 2025, in your opinion, Alexander, that a woman who writes some hurty words, which she takes down 3 hours later or an hour later, is in prison for 31 months, and I make no apology for what I'm going to say to you, please don't take this the wrong way, And a paedophile like Hugh Edwards and his mates are walking around this country with suspended sentences, because if I was anything to do with government, I would change that in a heartbeat. I think it's a disgrace.
There's no question about it. We do have a two-tier justice system in this country, different rules for different people. It's almost heinous cases getting off, and people putting in jail for a long time. There's no rhyme or reason now. I was brought up that justice should be blind for everyone. Everyone should get the same treatment, and it doesn't seem to be that way
I don't
anymore.
understand how, if you commit a crime, okay, it shouldn't matter about your with the sentencing council, it shouldn't matter about your religion, your sexuality, where you come from. A crime is a crime. But that woman's in jail for 31 months, and Hugh Edwards, who looked at the most deplorable images and shared them of young children, walks free. And then you think, you know, you talk about left-wing lawyers, then you think about judges and the people that are advocating how people should behave. And you would understand, wouldn't you, just to finish, why a lot of people in this country, probably why they would be attached to a station like this, feel that common sense has gone out the window.
It seems more and more going that way. Every single day there's a case, just like you're saying, and it's just, I don't understand it. It's just ridiculous. We're emptying the prisons of the bad people and putting people for sort of hurting words or misgendering people or various things in jail. The wrong people are going into jail, and some of the paedophile supporters or whatever are getting out, and it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
It means we have to keep fighting the fight. Been great to have you on. Just very quickly, don't look at me like that. He's a very important man. Prince Harry.
Oh dear, oh dear.
So I don't want anything to do with the royals, but I'd like your taxpayers to pay for me to have security forces for when I decide to come to a country I slag off the whole time.
At the same time as I've stopped doing my royal duties because I want to earn my own private money.
Slagging off the royal family that I don't want anything to be part of.
So I have my own private money, that's what I want to do, and therefore I don't want to use that private money.
And just final question, Alexander Stafford, and we hope you stand again in Rother Valley. You're always welcome to come back here. Will you, on the way home tonight in the car at some point in a quiet moment, will you be listening to Meghan Markle's new podcast?
I will not be listening to anything to do with that woman.
I love him. He's welcome back.